Welcome everyone, thanks for jumping on again. Tonight I'm going to talk about winning an argument, that essentially you should never aim to win an argument. Some people might think, why would I ever want to be in that situation? Of course I want to win an argument, that's what I go into an argument for. You go into battle and you want to win. But I guess when you have a disagreement and you're going in there with the idea that you've got to win, that means somebody's got to lose. And you've got to weigh up who that person is that you're having the argument with. So this could be a friend, it could be a work colleague, it could be your partner, a family member. So you have to weigh up, is it worth having that person come away feeling like they've lost, and at what cost? So hopefully you're familiar with the expression, you may have won the battle, but you haven't won the war. So what that's saying is you win an argument, but the end result is there's ultimately some damage. Hi to hear, I'm good, thanks. Ultimately there's damage to the relationship as a result of having the argument, because as we all know, quite often in arguments things can get quite heated and we don't necessarily phrase things the best way possible. Now I'm not saying that you have to be a doormat here or anything, but it's just worth keeping in mind, I guess, how important those relationships are to you, as to the way that you approach it and what attitude you bring to it. I guess it's easy to think that what you're saying is true and correct, because we all do, no matter what the circumstance, even if it's a really tiny little thing about who was going to cook dinner or who was going to hang the washing out, or who was going to drive the child to soccer, or whatever the case may be. It's very easy to hold very hard and fast to the belief that you're right, and the other person is wrong, because obviously if you're right, they must be wrong. So rather than seeing it as a win-lose option, you've probably heard the phrase win-win. So that's where there's compromise on both sides. And sure, it may feel like you've compromised more than the other, but the whole idea is to at least come away on neutral footing. So there isn't a clear winner or a clear loser. Now, there was an extensive study done by the Gottman Institute that's in Seattle. So they looked at married couples primarily, and they looked at the ratio of positive and negative interactions. So they found if there was a ratio of positive to negative interactions of 5-1 or more, then these people had more success for a long-term relationship. So there were higher rates of divorce and breakup if that ratio was getting smaller and tighter. So there was obviously more frequency of negative interactions or arguments. Now this can be applied to all relationships. It's not just married couples or romantic relationships. It's certainly, contact Darren. Okay, I don't know if that's Darren from school or not. Yeah, so it applies to all relationships. So the thing is, you need to be mindful of how many of these negative interactions or arguments that you're having, whether that's in the workplace, with friends, family, partners. But I guess the big thing is, okay, how do we deal with it? How do we do it without being like a pushover or a kiss ass? We've got to find a way of still navigating through this discussion where we've got a difference of agreement without obviously being a red rag to a bull and trying to get your opinions, your views across, but without trampling all over the other person. So one of the things that can be really effective is, one, obviously your attitude. So go in there with a little bit more exploration to actually try and understand it from the other person's perspective. Now, one of the things that I hear come up in arguments, if I hear couples fighting, is the word but. If you can do anything, remove the word but from the argument, because as soon as you say the word but, it has essentially nullified exactly what the person said. Try the phrase and, or try the phrase yes, so you've acknowledged what they've said, and then use the word and. So rather than saying, yeah, but I said this, blah, 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 you could say yes, and I said. So just by changing that one little word from but to and, you're immediately already showing acknowledgement of what the person said without being dismissive of it, because the word but seriously dismisses the person's previous statement. I guess another way to look at it, if you've all played cards as kids, one of the games is Snap, where card on card goes on top of each other and it's scrambled to the end. Arguments can be a lot like that, so it can feel a bit like trying to get one up on top of each other as quickly as you can to the next accusation or the next point. So rather than seeing it like a game of Snap, try and see it more as a game of concentration or patience, depending on what you called it. This is where the cards are all laid out. You turn them over so that you can get a matching pair. But essentially they're all beside each other. So one's not on top of the other, they're all beside each other. It's a simplistic way of looking at it, but the whole idea is that you've got your cards on the table, each has had their turn to say it without being interrupted with the word but. You're using the word and. So you say yes and rather than but. And then you have a look at the tables and you decide, what the movement forward is, what the solution is for you both. So it's listening to the other person's opinion, because remember, each of us think we're right. Each of us think what we're saying is 100% accurate. So we hold very tight to these beliefs that we're right in an argument, but the other person feels exactly the same way. So it's just about having a little bit more open perspective to see their point of view. You don't have to agree with it by saying the words yes and whatever it is you need to say. That doesn't mean you've agreed with them. It just means that you've acknowledged their contribution to the discussion, and then you're allowed to have your turn. The biggest thing, I guess, is keep the emotions in check, because as we get triggered by certain things, and that's usually because of something in the past, somebody says something that reminds us of our dad or our mum, or the bully at school, or that boss that we didn't like. That isn't that person's responsibility, but the emotional response that gets triggered in you is. So that's something you can work on separately, but you have to be in charge of your own emotions in an argument situation, because these tools of just using simple language tweaks are not going to work if those emotions are running high, because you'll fall straight back into old habits of yeah but, and I'm guilty of it. I've done it plenty of times. But by changing it to yes and saying what you need to and maintaining a sense of control over those emotions, you'll have much greater success. And hopefully there won't be too much damage done to the relationship in the course of having this argument, which hopefully will just be a difference of opinions rather than being labelled an argument. So I hope that helps. It's worth a try. Try the and, or keep saying and, just try the yes and rather than yes but. It can make a lot of difference. If you like it, please share it out, and I will see you all next week. Have an awesome weekend, and thanks for jumping on. Bye-bye.